this is the email address of the journal, and this is the URL. So this is a question for you. So please go to slido.com and enter the code 63026. Question for you is, thinking back about a project that you've done, what did you do with your data? So you can choose one or more of these options. Okay, the bars are shrinking and growing. So exciting. I guess asking this question after you've heard so much about repositories may may bias your answer, but try to be honest about what
There's
you
only
actually
one
did.
option, right? It's not a.
Is it just one option? Okay, it might have not been intentional, but yeah, then choose the most appropriate option. Okay, the reason I added info about it in supplementary information is because I also did a study that actually Sasha mentioned in the chat, where we measured the data availability statements and the effect on citations. So I was interested in seeing if anyone used supplementary information in the humanities. It seems like no. Okay, people are still voting. Public repository is by far the most popular option, with about half of the people of you choosing that. So it's really good. I mean, if you'd asked me this question when I was doing my PhD, I would have said I kept it in my computer, and then my computer died. And so that was back 10, 13 years ago, and I had no idea about reproducibility or long-term preservation and any of that. So things have changed, both for me personally and also for the research world. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So the repository is the winner, and then sharing with colleagues and collaborators second. My computer still 13%, so still going. Private archive 7%, and other. I'm curious to hear what the other option was. Does any of you who answered other want to share what that was? Chai?
Yes, it was probably me. I am working with corpora, so corpora without being accessed publicly has have no reasons. One of the corpus is the Latin corpus. It is, by the way, not used so much. We have a collection of corpora for many languages. Data is downloaded from the web, and most used corpora are for Russian, because they are very big.
So
I am concerned very much about the copyright of, say, the Latin text that are available on the web, because, of course, the original authors probably have died already, but the editors may claim the copyright. It's not always clear how to solve the problem, because there are so many sites providing the data, and we are not able to check every site individually.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I together with a colleague, Alessandro Vatri, I built an ancient Greek corpus because we needed a corpus of text for our project, and the corpus that is normally used, the Thesaurus Linguae Graecas, TLG, that's proprietary, so we couldn't basically redistribute the data. So we resorted to the Perseus digital library, which is openly available, publicly available, and we built a corpus from it, and then we actually wrote a data paper in the Brill's journal about it. But we would have liked to use the TLG because that's what most classicists use, but we just couldn't. We weren't allowed to. So it's definitely a very relevant question.
Is anybody of the participants here working with Latin? Besides you, of course.
Marton?
Yes, he is working with Latin legal text, the Roman law, yes. There are not many fluent speakers of Latin nowadays available.
Yeah.
We have one at our institute.
That's interesting. Okay, I've prepared. Okay, there's a question in the chat.
There's also Alice Oates has
a few. There's been some activity here. Can't find raise hand feature. I do have a question. I have to dash. Okay, Jeff had to dash. What is your policy regarding privacy sensitive data? So data that cannot be shared publicly. Great, great question. So the policy of the journal is that first, the data set is deposited in a repository. One of the recommended ones, or if you have a different one, we can have a discussion if it's probably good enough, just to check. And then the paper is about the data set in the repository. So we can split the work, and the journal does not take care of storing the data. There is a Dataverse instance of JOHD, so that's one option. But if you deposit in a different repository, then it's completely independent. So the policy about privacy sensitive data basically has to do with the policy of the repository. Marton, please.
If you work with sensitive data in the UK, and I believe in other countries, before you start the project, you will have to create what is called a data management plan, and which means that even before you make the first step creating that data set, you will have to have some plan how to handle the data and how to handle these privacy issues in that DMP. So I think it should not be an issue by the time you get to publishing your data.
Yeah, I guess not everyone compiles a data management plan in advance, but yeah, if you do. So I think going back to thanks, Marton. Basically, if you do still have the question, I would say it depends on the repository. But normally we assume the data is publicly available. But maybe there is a way, an anonymized version of the data that can be shared publicly. Or Alice has raised that. Please.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't find the raise hand feature.
No worries, we can see you.
I just wondered, you mentioned like additional data sets, and I wondered if you included in that kind of notes relating to process and analysis of data, or if that was too far from the kind of traditional. So because I'm thinking about a paper, looking at how data collection and that process has been different this year with a colleague, and I just wondered if that was the kind of thing that was relevant to your journal.
Yeah, thanks for this question. I would say off the top of my head, it sounds like this is what we call a full-length research paper. So it's a discussion about the data collection process in this case and the challenges. So it's a kind of meta paper about data and not about a specific data set, but about the process. So I would say definitely do check the scope, but it sounds a lot like what we call full-length research paper, which are not that long. It would be appropriate. We can discuss further separately if you like. Question from Andreas: from JOHD's perspective, could it make sense to negotiate with other journals publishers so that data paper can become a requirement when a paper involves new data sets? Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yes, Andreas, it is my radar. I actually used to work for Springer Nature, the academic publisher, and they had worked quite hard to ensure that there is a policy within that publisher that authors are encouraged to submit a data paper when they submit paper to one Nature journal, for example. So definitely it's something it'd be nice to do. JOHD is run by academics like me on a voluntary basis. So we have limited time, but it's definitely a really thing worth pursuing. Also in terms of strategic partnerships with funders, for example. So any kind of collaboration that encourages people to and gives incentives to people to publish data papers, I think would be good, first of all, for the community, more than for the journal, but obviously for the journal as well. And then there was a question from Sasha: do you find that researchers tend to publish data papers after publishing a more traditional paper, also based on that data set? Yes, I think some of the concerns are, am I spoiling my high impact publication by publishing a data paper? So I've heard that anecdotally, and it shouldn't be the case, because a data paper is really complementary to a traditional research paper. But there's sometimes concern that maybe during the reviewing process of the traditional paper, questions about the data come back, and so people tend to wait until they've published their first choice traditional paper before publishing data paper. I'd like to move away from that and see the two as complementary, kind of living together. But yeah, it's what I've seen so far. Martin?
Just on this point, I think it should be the other way around. Incidentally, that's what happened in my case. And the reasoning was that you published your data first, and then you can reference it in the research paper. There is not really, in the research paper, you don't want to spend time on the steps on the technical steps of creating the database, but you want to give yourself a chance to refer to an already published solid data paper. So sort of the foundation for a higher level analysis that you would do in the research paper. If you do it on the other way around, it's to me, it feels a bit awkward that you've done that step already, and I think it's not jeopardizing the impact of research paper, you're jeopardizing the impact of the data paper if you publish it after the research paper. So I would do it the other way around.
Actually, I threw it in the chat, but I thought I'd bring this up as well, that this question came up quite a lot when people were contacting me and Mandy about submissions for the special collection on COVID-19, just because it is new research. So people are working on this data now. And the idea was, or many authors said that they would like to first actually submit their research-based papers and then their data papers. And back to what Martine was saying, I think this also comes from the fact that data papers is new to most of us. As you said in your presentation, the world of like open data and sharing data, this is very new. And I think traditionally, or at least in psychology, people can even be very protective about their data and sharing things and, whose idea was first. And so I think this is where it comes from. And slowly, I guess we'll shift paradigms into what Martin is explaining, that it really is as a complement to your research-based paper. And for a lot, I think it'll save you space, which I think is the best. You don't have to describe also a lot of the methodology in detail, which is more and more for journals are restricted with space, and so this can really help. And just back to, I think, Andreas's question, I found it really interesting. So one of the projects I was involved with in terms of COVID-19 research, the initial paper was submitted to Nature, and the reviewers actually then said to please submit the data to the paired data, the shared database journal, which was really nice. So they were doing exactly what you were saying. They were encouraging them to make the data freely available too. So in hindsight, and I'm not a leader in this project, it probably would have been better to first share the data, as Martin was explaining, and then, because it's taken ages to publish this paper, and it would have actually helped to first have this data made available and then to publish the research papers around it, although it does seem a little bit counterintuitive if you're new to the process. Like me, I'm also new to the process. Sorry, Barbara.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's really interesting. There was a question which I think would be for you from Samantha. I have a quick question. We are busy finishing 4 N equals 4 papers on current COVID data set, 2,500 records, but can we submit the data with reference to these papers afterwards? Would rather share the data after we've got these first papers out of the way. Would be keen to submit the data to JOHD after that. Would that be possible around summer 2021? So I guess it's exactly the topic we were discussing now. It's which one comes first. And Samantha, do you want to comment on why you would like the other papers?
Thanks for a great presentation. Good to see everybody, and happy Freedom Day. I mean, it does. Maybe Brits are a bit more like this, we sort of guard our data or something. But as in an old-fashioned way, I am sort of worried. You sort of go to conferences and you talk about your work, and then 6 months later, the research question that you posed has already been published by somebody else. So that would be my concern about submitting this data. And we have these sort of 4 main questions in this data that we want to answer, and we want to avoid other people getting there. I mean, obviously we're very happy to collaborate, and actually Sahba's team is working on some of the data with us, the dream transcripts and everything. So we've all got our own sort of questions that we want to pose to this data. But if we submit that data set to the public, then somebody else that we don't know could publish that. So I just wondered what are the protections on that data that will prevent some anonymous person from Timbuktu getting there first.
Okay, I'm happy to leave to let the others answer. I can quickly say my answer would be, well, at least they should at first cite your data paper. So if you publish the data and the data paper, then that's, as actually Julia in the chat says, this is the way to claim the data as an author. So whoever takes data and does things to it will have to cite your data paper, and with that, your data set. If they then go and do things with the data, well, yeah, that's a risk, but it's also the beauty of open research. If they're unlikely to do exactly what you were planning to do, and if they do it the exact same way as you and quicker, and they publish it in the same journal, I mean, that's unlikely. And they probably will publish, if they can publish faster than you, they probably would publish somewhere else. Maybe it's a different venue, different community. I think it comes with sharing data, yes. But that if you view the work that has gone into creating the data credited in the data paper, and then the work of analyzing the data credited in another paper, then I think the two can coexist. If you think your original prose paper also contains credit to your data creation process, yes, then I can see how that, but it's decoupling the two. That's the challenge.
It's just it does on the one hand make one sound a little bit, that we're trying to be overly protective of our work and not sharing, sort of being very, but on the other hand, some of these projects, in particular this one, it sort of relates to other work that we're doing. So it's not just a standalone project I mean, we're looking at without. I mean, I trust you all here, so I can tell you about.
Well, we're recording this, and if you.
About working memory processes and impulse control. So a few of us that are working on that are doing other studies in that field that are unrelated to COVID. So publishing this data would sort of support our models and our developing theories that sort of contribute to a larger story. So on the one hand, yes, it's fantastic that people do publish, in the same fields in this data. It sort of is feeding the same baby, so to speak. So yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's 50-50. But yeah, hopefully we'll get these papers out, and then we can submit this.
So I just wanted to, if Mark, maybe you wanted to say it as well, just to kind of conclude this really great topic question. Thank you, Samantha. Is that Martin also just pointed to the fact that the disciplines in humanities are really varied, and so they work quite differently. The data is very different, and also the competitive nature is quite different. So what Samantha is referring to is that it's true, certain research questions are asked, and and people are a little bit maybe more guarded of their data just because of the nature of the data in fields like psychology, perhaps. But this might not be the case in other fields where you can have the same data and the research questions are very different, and the nature of the field is quite different. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. That would be it. I think it's up to the authors to see. I think what's really important is that the data is eventually shared, that the data does become publicly available, because people will look at your data in a different way, and different kind of questions will arise. So I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way to do this, even with special issue kind of deadlines. That's okay. That's okay. It's just and I think it's actually really nice that these questions are asked, because it just helps us think a little bit more about the questions that Barbara has been posing today about what is humanities data and why should it be shared, and why is it important that it should be shared. So just a few closing comments around that.
I mean, it's nice to think, I mean, Sahba was referring to sort of the science field as well. So neuroscience is very competitive in that way too. And you have to be sort of very guarded. And of course, my other thought was, if we publish this data and I've promised some data to somebody else, a collaborator, and then somebody else comes along and publishes that data before them, that's sort of affecting relationships there too. But yeah, I think it's really a great. Can we still submit, or is the deadline passed now? We can, yeah.
No, you can. Sorry, Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, please, yes.
No, I think yes, please do submit. So we are still definitely accepting submissions. Definitely, we would like to try to conclude the special issue in early next year. Also, it just works in terms of the timeline of COVID, right? Like that you want this. I think beyond that, we will still accept submissions around this. There'll be a rolling submission. So don't be shy about deadlines and things. We'll definitely accept submissions past the deadline.
Mandy, for the templates, they look fantastic. I was really enjoying your presentation there, that it looked so simple and nice and very easy to navigate. So that's, can you tell other journals to do that, please?
I mean, so this is exactly the point, right? We sort of wanted, just with JOHD in general, before the special collection this was done, like, because I'm a very early researcher, I'm just a PhD student, like what would I want when I was looking to submit a paper? Because often, when you're so green to things, you don't really know what to do. So having something that is really easy to explain, and a lot of time journal papers, data papers are not obvious to people. People don't really know about them. So we did want to make this a place where it was sort of easy for people to understand what was going on. Brilliant. And have something to use. Yeah, Martin.
And I think that's part of the reason why JOHD and other open access journals who work with templates can be so fast. It's not that it's the quality is low, it's exactly the same quality. Just because the submission is structured, it makes it so much easier for the reviewer to look at the sections in the right way. And also, I don't know the technicalities. I know about another journal where the moment you follow the template, the fields are automatically the information in the field are automatically pulled from the submission into their database, which means that there doesn't have to be an editor who goes through the publication and copy paste the relevant parts to the relevant field. It's automatically pulled, which cuts down the process significantly. So it's not magic, it's just following procedure and using a template like this, which makes it possible for an open access journal like JOHD to publish quickly without compromising on quality.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no more to add. I was just catching up with the chat. And actually, Nilo Pedrazzini is also in the call, and he is also part of the Journal of Open Humanities Data team as a copy editor and also editorial assistant. We're working together on the LaTeX template. So we want to say hi, please. Nice to see you.
I don't know if you can hear me. I had problems with my microphone before, but hopefully you can hear me. Yeah.
We can hear you.
So I joined JOHD in May as a copy editor, and then I just like to have more responsibility on because I really like the focus of the journal and all. So yeah, Barbara just got me in with a little bit more responsibilities. I've been working on the LaTeX template lately, which will be available very soon, hopefully. Yeah, we're just fixing minor details, and yeah.
And also, you've shaped the author survey, so we are collecting feedback from our authors. I was about to show you some of these results, but I didn't want to make the presentation too long, and we haven't had only had 8 responses yet so far. But in one of the next events, we can definitely talk about the feedback. It's been very positive so far, so we were encouraged. Yeah, thanks, Nilo. You're PhD candidate at the University of Oxford in linguistics. If no one has more questions, I do have one more icebreaker. Or so if you go and share my screen, if you go to Slido again, one more time, and you type the code, the question is, what do you think humanities researchers should do with their data? So the first question was, what did you do? After all this discussion, what do you think the community should do? So it's the same answers as before, but from a different perspective. So curious to see your answers. Yeah, second one is a bit ironic. Okay, has everyone voted? Well, we have fewer people than before, but everyone said deposit. Okay, so we got the message through, but we do not ignore all the challenges and the questions that have come in through this discussion, like concerns around timing and competitiveness. So these are important things to keep in mind. We do acknowledge it's not so easy and straightforward. Okay, I'll stop here, and I am preparing to close this event. Has anyone got any more comments, questions, things to say? Martin wants to stay on the call. Okay, we can do that. You convinced us, Samantha. Great. So we will be organizing more events like this focused on different topics. So you will be sent a post-event survey. Please take those 5 minutes to fill it in, because this was a bit of an experiment and we want to know what we can improve and what other topics you'd like to see. We, of course, did not have much time to go into details about, for example, data licensing or repositories or peer review process of data, reproducibility, and all other topics. So this will be your chance to to influence our decision. And do join our mailing list to stay up to date. We don't spam you, we just send messages every once in a while. And you can also follow the journal on Twitter. It's UP_JOHD, JOHD. And yeah, I wish you great holidays